rematch. I just saw your tweet, and you should follow Mark on Twitter. Shame on you if you're not. That basically said, hey, all the control, octagon control people are going to freak out, but you thought the scoring was correct. Is that correct?
I did. I had it 48-47 for Woodley. Two judges had a 48-47 for Woodley. I think that's correct. I mean, if you go by what the scoring criteria is, which is effective striking and grappling first, there was no grappling, so effective striking. Effective striking essentially means damage. It doesn't mean who's coming forward. It doesn't mean who's getting the better position, in the octagon. It means who's doing the most damage. There wasn't a lot of damage to go on, but I thought Tyron Woodley in 3 of those rounds landed the harder shots, and that simply is why he won the fight.
I'm with you. I had the exact same card you did, 48-47. Great minds.
Great minds.
But he had the one takedown in the 3rd round, which I thought won him that. And then in that 5th round, if you had it even going into the 5th and final round, which many people did, the last 30 seconds, he clearly stuns the Wonder Boy, knocks him down twice in the final 30 seconds. To me, that was clear cut to give him that majority decision. But Mark, up until that point, was this not one of the more uneventful rematches you've ever seen in the UFC?
Yeah, I mean, the action in this fight was actually the judges' scorecards. There was actually more action in figuring out who was winning these rounds than there were actually in the octagon. It was a very low output, low activity title fight. Nothing like the fight that we saw these guys have at UFC 205 in November. That was the fight of the night. That was one of the best title fights, I thought, of 2016. It was a fantastic back and forth fight. This was none of that. It was almost like both of these guys knew how good the other one was and how dangerous the other one was from that first fight, but they were gun shy, and it really was that way until the 5th round when Woodley finally opened up and landed some big shots. But neither guy really asserted himself in this fight until that last minute of the 5th round.
Mark, is it because we saw the damage that was done to each fighter in the first time around when Tyron Woodley almost knocked out the Wonder Boy? We saw the high leg kicks that the Wonder Boy did some damage with the first time around. Was there too much mutual respect here because they know the firepower the other one possesses?
I think so. I really do. I think that Wonder Boy, for his part, knows how dangerous Woodley is as far as power goes. He can knock you out in one shot. He almost knocked Wonder Boy out in that 4th round the first time. And I think with Woodley was very Wonder Boy has the range, and Woodley was very afraid to kind of get within that range. And if Woodley can't get within Wonder Boy's kicks and his range, he can't land the big power. So it was just kind of an inactive fight because it was like a chess match in all the worst ways. It was just a lot of inactivity, waiting for openings, and not a lot of openings actually came.
We're not going to see this fight a 3rd time around, right? I mean, we might see it somewhere down the road, but not next, correct?
Correct. I don't think that's the fight to do next. I expect, Damian Maia.
Yes.
He has a fight coming up with George Masvidal in about 2 months now. He's going to be fighting, and I think the winner of that fight gets the next title shot. I assume obviously things can change from now, but that seems like what makes the most sense. Maia's on a 6-fight winning streak. He's looked very, very good lately.
What about Wonder Boy? Where does he go from here? Because now he's had essentially 50 minutes to try to win the belt from Tyron Woodley, and he couldn't do it in either instance here. Where does he go from here if Woodley gets Maia, if Maia does win?
It's crazy because, he there was a draw the first time. He lost tonight, but you cannot come any closer to winning the title than Wonder Boy now has twice. It's uncanny, the last 2 fights, and how they've gone. Tonight was almost a draw. Like I saw some people had a draw as a score in tonight's fight. I don't know what Wonder Boy does from here, but he's not far out of another title shot. I don't think it'll be against Woodley, but if Woodley were to lose the belt, 1 or 2 wins for Wonder Boy could get him back up there. I mean, welterweight is so stacked, Dave. I mean, the top of that division, the 2 guys that I just mentioned, Maia Masvidal, Donald Cerrone still hanging out in that division. Carlos Condit is still there if he decides to come back. These guys are all elite fighters, and George St. Pierre. Want to throw that in there? He's coming back and fighting Michael Bisping for the middleweight title, but he is the greatest welterweight of all time, and he could find himself back in that 170-pound division soon as well.
That's exactly my next question about GSP. After seeing Tyron Woodley get his arm raised in victory tonight, we know Tyron Woodley's been looking for a big money fight, which might be pissing off Dana White at this stage. But if GSP does beat Michael the Count Bisping, could he try to do a Conor McGregor and go back to his old division and try to be a 2-time champion in 2 different weight classes?
I do think so. I think that's definitely a possibility. It really just depends on what happens in that fight against Bisping. If he wins that fight, he said it the other day at the press conference in Las Vegas. He's not guaranteeing that if he wins the belt, he's going to defend it right away. You know, who knows what's going to happen? We're in a new era of the UFC where it's really more about the size of the fight. It's really more about the interest in the fight rather than the belts and rather than the merit. That's just the way it is. I mean, otherwise, Yoel Romero will be fighting Bisping for the middleweight title. He's not. George St. Pierre is coming back after more than 3 years away and fighting for a belt in a division he never fought in the UFC. So it's really more about the big fight, the big name. And yeah, that is on the table 100%. GSP Woodley, maybe, sometime next year or even later this year, depending on how the Bisping fight.